Walters is the place to be this Saturday. The DC Defenders play at 3 p.m. at Audi Field, and the Nats host the Mariners at 4, plus the World Cup is on all day. Walters is located across the street from Nationals Park, just off South Capitol Street.
Here's the 0-2. Fastball, line drive, left field, base hit. This is headed to the corner. Giants will take the lead. Lee scores easily. Ball gets by Lile. He picks it up on the warning track. Eldridge will turn and hold it second. The local product from Vienna, Virginia, just stuck it to the team that he grew up rooting for. And the Giants have the lead 2-1, their first lead of the night. Here's the set for Wynn. He delivers. Swinging a ground ball up the middle. Base hit, right center field. Garcia scores. Taina's the tying run. He will score. The throw to the plate is not in time. C.J. Abrams delivers. And the Nationals have scored 2 times here in the ninth. It's now a 3-3 game here in San Francisco. Abrams, RBIs 50 and 51. A huge clutch hit here in the top of the ninth. 1-2 the count with 2 outs. And here's the pitch. Swinging a line drive. It's a base hit into right center field. Abrams rounding third. He will score. The Nationals lead. Daylen Lile delivers. It's 4-3 Nationals. They're going crazy in the first base side dugout. What a rally here in the ninth inning. Abrams ties it with a 2-run single, steals second, and Lile brings him in to put the Nationals in front.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He is at Oracle Park in San Francisco. I tell you, the city of Washington, D.C. is giving the city of San Francisco a lot of angst when it comes to sports right now. We, over the weekend, had San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Ayuk on Instagram begging to play for the Washington Commanders. And we, late night on Monday night, had a tremendous win for the Washington Nationals at the San Francisco Giants. A 4-3 win at the Giants late night on Monday night in game 1 of a 3-game series. This was a game in which the Nats overcame a 3-1 ninth inning deficit by scoring 3 runs in the top of the ninth. The 2026 Nats entered Monday 0-29 in regular season games in which the team trailed after 8 innings. That record now 1-29. What a win for the Nats. Their overall record now at 34-33, 22-13 on the road versus 12-20 at home. Good to have you with us. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Table to Mat, which you can count on for all of your nutrition and personal training needs. Table to Mat offers virtual and in-person nutrition services and personal training to the DMV area. You can email Table to Mat directly through the website at tabletomat.com. That's the word table, the number 2, MAT.com. You could call Table to Mat at 240-388-2206. If you stayed up late to watch this game on Monday night, you were rewarded. Mark, what a win for the Nats. Maybe their best win of the season.
Yeah, I think so, all things considered, because of the way that they had to go about doing it. And, you mentioned that stat being 0-29 when trailing after 8 innings. I mentioned that to Miles Mikolas afterwards. He said this was the first time that you guys had pulled off a 9th inning rally to win. And he said he honestly was surprised by that because he's felt like they've been in a position to do that a lot.
I'm surprised that's our first one. You tell me that, because I feel like we've been real scrappy late in the game, keeping the game close and getting, right there with the last at bat.
Very often, the boys have battled and put runners in scoring position in the 9th inning and come close to pulling it off, but just had not actually done it. So for them to finally pull that off in this case and hang on to win in the bottom of the 9th, I think this was a really significant win for them, snatching a victory from the claws of defeat, because they had done very little offensively all night against Logan Webb. And then when they finally got a chance to face somebody else out of the Giants bullpen, they put it all together, and we'll get into it. But right now, is there anybody you would rather have at the plate with the game on the line than C.J. Abrams? It felt inevitable once he was up with a chance to tie the game. Just a phenomenal job by him, as well as all the other guys who contributed to that rally.
He has been so clutch for sure. I mean, I think the only thing that might keep this from being the Nats' best win of the season is that the Giants are not a good team, and the Nats have had a number of wins over good teams. But I mean, whatever. This was a tremendous win for the Nats. This was such an inspiring win. And this is the kind of win that if you're a fan of a team and you see your team author, you're like, it kind of feels like things are rolling in our way this season. Like more and more as we watch this team this season, it just feels like things are going the Nats' way this season in a manner that we have not seen previously in terms of the life of this podcast. It felt like there was a dark cloud over this franchise 2021 through 2025. It feels like the cloud has been lifted this season. Just a lot of good things are happening with this franchise right now. And, you talk about this Nats offense. I mean, was the overall body of work for the offense in this game outstanding? No, but the offense ended up coming through. The offense ended up striking again. The Nats, as we record this in the early morning hours of Tuesday, June 9th, number 1 in MLB in runs scored at 356. The Nats in this game just 1 run over the first 8 innings, but then 3 runs in the top of the 9th. The Nats for the game had 8 hits, which were a double and 7 singles. Drew no walks, went 3 for 4 with runners in scoring position. Look, the Nats struggled against the Giants starting pitcher Logan Webb. He allowed 1 run in 8 innings, 7 strikeouts, no walks. But then the Nats got to Giants reliever Keaton Winn and then some. Winn ended up meaning loss for the Giants in this game. 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning. It was remarkable how much the Nats struggled against Webb and then the extent to which the Nats got to win in that 3-run ninth.
I asked Daylen Lile what was the feeling when Webb was finally out of the game, and he smiled and he said it was a sigh of relief.
A sigh of relief. It was pretty good for us to, get him out of the game. But, he did a great job today.
We've seen it time and again over the years. There is nothing that perks up an opposing dugout more than the removal of a dominant pitcher, particularly a starting pitcher. And I know the stakes weren't anywhere close to the same thing, but it kind of reminded me of Jordan Zimmerman getting pulled for Drew Storen in Game 2 of the 2014 NLDS, obviously against the Giants. Way more important game than this one could ever be considered, but that's how good Webb was. He was getting outs on 1 pitch. I think it was at one point 5 out of 7 outs the Nats made over a stretch of this game against Webb came on the first pitch of at-bats. They weren't putting up a fight at all against him. And as soon as he comes out of the game and anybody else is on the mound, it's like they all perked up again, said, okay, here's our shot. Let's do this thing. So credit to them for sticking with it, and credit to them for then finally putting together the kind of quality at bats that they just had not been able to do all night.
And the man who had the hit of the game was C.J. Abrams. He is an Nats starting shortstop and number 4 batter, 2 for 4 with a 2-run single, another single, and a stolen base. Did commit a fielding error, but Abrams in that Nats 3-run ninth, a 1-out, 2-run single up the middle to tie the game at 3. And he had a steal of second base. Here is your C.J. Abrams slash line with runners in scoring position. Now, this is something. Batting average 381. On base percentage, 447, slugging percentage, 667. His OPS with runners in scoring position is 1,114. He is number 2 in MLB, in RBI, if you care about such things, 51. But man, has this guy delivered time and time again. You said it. There's nobody on the Nats who you want up in a big spot more than Abrams right now. And he delivered once again.
And that was the feeling in the dugout, too. They were so excited to see him be the one to step up to the plate there after, and let's give credit. Luis Garcia gets the rally started with a double. Curtis Mead gets hit by a pitch. And so now you've got the tying runs on. Now, to me, the key moment in all this, even before this happened at the start of the at-bat, I'm thinking to myself, if you're Tony Vitello, would you consider walking Abrams? Given everything we just know and what you just said about his performance in those spots, would you walk him to load the bases and bring up Dylan Crews, who had had a terrible night at the plate? I think that was a valid question to ask then. It certainly became a valid question after the passed ball that moved both runners into scoring position and put Abrams in a 2-0 count. I assumed it was a given at that point that they were going to hold up 4 fingers, give CJ first base, and take their chances with Dylan Crews and then maybe Daylen Lile after him. And instead, they pitched to him right away. Next pitch, 2-0, Abrams, base hit, tie game. Good on him for coming through, of course. And as we said, he is the guy you want in those spots. But given all that, I could not believe that the Giants actually pitched to him.
He's hitting at a level that commands being intentionally walked at this point. I mean, if you look at Nats who have been intentionally walked here, James Wood, 7, C.J. Abrams 2, Daylen Lile 1. That 2 for Abrams has got to start ticking up because, to your point, the guy is a madman right now with runners in scoring position. And, once you get beyond him and Wood, the load lightens in terms of, how worried you are about Nats batters. So, yeah, you would think those intentional walks are going to pick up. It was a rough night for Dylan Crews, although we did have an interesting defensive play. We'll get to that. The other big hit, though, in that inning, Daylen Lile. He is the Nats starting left fielder and number 6 batter, 1 for 4 with an RBI single. Lile in that 3-run ninth, a 2-out RBI single to center field on a 1-2 pitch to put the Nats up 4-3. And you asked Nats manager Blake Butera about that Lile hit during his postgame session with you guys.
Well, he knew there was a guy on second base, runner in scoring position with 2 outs. He knew he just needed to get a ball at least into play. He didn't want to strike out there. And
not an easy pitch on which to connect, and yet Lile found a way to connect on that pitch.
If you go look at it on the strike zone plot, it's nowhere close to the strike zone. It's way outside. But Lyle laughed about it, and he said, in that spot, he's just looking for something up in the zone.
I mean, that's a guy who throws a splitter that has a lot of run on it. And, I was just trying to look for something up, and so happened to be so far outside. But I was just glad I was able to put my bat on it and just put it in play.
He knew that Wynn threw a pitch that moves well off the plate like that. So he's just looking for it up in the zone, and then he sees it moving away from him. He's like, let me just get the bat on the ball there with the runner in scoring position. And he made good enough contact to get the ball into the outfield and bring him in. I know it's been a little more inconsistent for Lyle. He certainly has not done so far this year what we saw from him the second half of last year, but he does still have a knack for them in some big spots. And this was a huge one. The Abrams hit doesn't mean anything if they don't ultimately win the game. And so that's why Lyles, of course, is incredibly important. And credit to C.J. Abrams for getting himself in a scoring position with the stolen base. I mean, he did it all to set that up, and then Lyle did what he needed to do to get him in.
This is sports broadcaster Ben Raby and a longtime listener to the Nats Chat podcast. A while back, I was in the market for a personal trainers, and my ears perked up last season when I heard an ad from show sponsor Table to Mat. Proving the power of advertising, I reached out and eventually began a training program with Chad, and boy, am I ever glad I did. Chad will work with you to devise a personal program. The communication, the flexible scheduling, and the setup at his home gym are all great. I legitimately bounced around trainers and gym programs for years, and I've never had a more productive and enjoyable experience than working with Chad. Do what I did. Visit him online at tabletomat.com. That's table, the number 2, and mat, M-A-T, tabletomat.com. Reach out to Chad. Hear the terrific workout programs he can build for you. Plus, like you, he's a huge Nats fan.
Webb checks the runner, pitch to Garcia, swinging a ground ball right side, through into right field, a base hit. Wood around third on his way to the plate. Up with the ball is Lee. Throw to the plate is offline. Wood scores, stumbling through the bag and landing face down on the grass. Past home plate, he's okay. Garcia to second base on the throw. And a clutch 2-out RBI single for Luis Garcia Jr. after the single and steal set it up for James Wood. And the Nationals are on the board first here tonight in the top of the 6th inning with 2 out. It's the Nationals 1 and the Giants nothing.
I think he was in between sliding and standing up, so he did the in-between, reach down and touch home, and then slide after he got to home. Hey, that's one way to do it, but it counted as a run.
James Wood, he was the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, 1 for 4 with a single and a stolen base. But he and the Nats 1-run 6 really put on a show. Wood in that Nats 1-run 6, the 2-out full count single into center field with a game best exit velocity of 114.3 miles per hour per Statcast. He then stole second base, and he then scored on a Luis Garcia Jr. 2-out RBI single through the right side of the infield to put the Nats up 1-0. And how about how Wood actually scored? He scored via reaching down to touch home plate before tumbling down. That's unique. Not many guys do that. Not many guys can do that, but he, with his extreme length, was able to pull that off.
That was one wild trip around the bases for James Wood. Let's start with the fact that I just mentioned how many quick outs the team was making against Webb. First 2 batters that inning, 2 pitches, 2 outs. So Wood comes up, and if nothing else, you're saying just at least work the count, make the guy work a little bit. Well, he did. He got a 6-pitch at bat. He then singles. He then steals second. And if you notice on that stolen base, he goes in head first. The helmet flies off. It bounces off the ground, hits him on the lip, and he comes up kind of woozy a little bit, like checking to make sure that he's not bleeding from his mouth. So he's already a little bit dinged up at that point. And then on the Garcia single, he's racing around third, coming to the plate. It looks like there's going to be a close play at the plate. And I don't know what prompted him to do what he did, but he reaches down and with his fingertips makes sure he catches the plate just as he's going to tumble over and do another face plant onto the ground. Not even close to the prettiest 360 feet you're ever going to see around the bases. But boy, it was effective. And at that point, they desperately needed that because that was the extent of their output against Logan Webb for 8 innings.
Yeah, that was impressive what James Wood did there. We mentioned Luis Garcia. He is the Nats starting DH and number 2 batter, 2 for 4, had the double, also had that RBI single. The Nats top 4 players in terms of OPS, in terms of like qualified Nats players in OPS for this regular season. James Wood, number 1, 930. CJ Abrams, number 2, 915. Luis Garcia, number 3, 736. Daylen Lile, number 4, 716. So all 4 of those guys coming through in this game. By the way, if you watch this game, helmets of Nats players were flying off like crazy throughout this game. I don't understand this phenomenon, why this team can't get these guys helmets that actually fit. But like over and over again, helmets were flying everywhere. Maybe it was some of the win factor at Oracle Park on Monday night, but that was something. Now, I mentioned Dylan Crews, so it was a rough game for him at the plate. He is the Nats starting center fielder, a number 5 batter, 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. But how about the defensive moment that stood out for Crews in this game? Bottom of the 4th, runner on first, 1 out. The game is scoreless.
Now the pitch, swinging a fly ball left center field. This is deep. Back goes Lile. Back goes Crews on the warning track. Both there. They collide, and Crews caught the ball. Up there second is Lee. Has to retouch and head back to first, and will.
Crews makes a leaping backhanded catch on the warning track in left center field and colliding with left fielder Daylen Lile. This on an opposite field flyout by Bryce Eldridge. But an impressive catch by Crews. But that was a scary moment. That's not the kind of thing that should ever happen. 2 outfielders colliding like that near the wall. But that obviously is what happened.
Very fortunate that wasn't a total disaster, both in terms of them colliding and somebody getting hurt and of the ball falling down. Instead, it ends up being caught and they still make contact and survive it. I don't know what to say except that I think they've played together enough that shouldn't be an issue communication-wise. I know Jacob Young primarily plays center field and not Dylan Crews, but Crews and Lyle have played together before. Yeah, it's a loud crowd, and it was a long way to get to that ball for both of them. But my God, that could have been absolute disaster in more ways than one. Thankfully, it wasn't.
Yeah, and, I think that is a reminder, too, of, like, the good fortune with the Nats. This tremendous injury luck for position players. Not a single position player has been on an injured list throughout the season. A moment like that could result in injury doesn't result in injury. We've seen some ailments pop up for Nats players. James Wood with the knee. Luis Garcia had his ailment a few games back. Nobody ends up on an injured list. There is some magic fairy dust that has been sprinkled on this Nats team for so much of this season here. It's so nice to see that.
Crowd revs it up. Varland to the belt. No balls, 2 strikes. He kicks and he deals. Swing and a miss. He struck him out. The Nationals win 4-3. For the first time this season, the Nationals rally from a deficit after 8 innings. They have been 0-29 entering the 9th inning trailing. They now have 1 in that column with a dramatic 3-run comeback. Big hits for Abrams and Lile, and the Nationals steal Game 1 in San Francisco. Gus Varland able to nail it down, striking out Eldridge, stranding the tying run 90 feet away. What a victory for the Nationals.
So the Nats pitching in this 4-3 win at the Giants late night on Monday night. This was another opener game. The Nats used an opener who was relief pitcher Richard Lovelady. He tossed a scoreless bottom of the first despite giving up 2 singles. And then starting pitcher Miles Mikolas came into the game as the Nats bulk man. He tossed 4 2/3 scoreless innings. So you look at what Lovelady and Mikolas combined to do. 5 2/3 shutout innings. Terrific. Mikolas here Through April, ERA of 8.23. Since the start of May, ERA of 4.01. I know his most recent outings coming into this game had not exactly been stellar, but the overall body of work from Mikolas since the start of May, so much better than what we had from this guy over March and April. So Lovelady and Mikolas come through. The Nats used 3 pitchers beyond Lovelady and Mikolas in this game, and the results were rather mixed. So Mitchell Parker came into the game for Miles Mikolas. Parker allowed 1 run in 1 inning and was lucky that final line was not worse. Parker faced 8 batters, got just 3 outs. He gave up 5 singles, came into the game in the bottom of the 6th with the bases empty, 2 outs, and the Nats up 1-0. And Parker gave up a single to each of the first 3 batters he faced to tie the game at 1. Clayton Beeter allowed 2 runs in 1 1/3 innings. He came into the game in the bottom of the 7th with runners at the corners, 2 outs, and the game tied at 1. Got a big out. Got the Giants cleanup batter, Willie Adames, to fly out to center fielder Dylan Crews to end the 7th. But Beeter then unraveled in the bottom of the 8th, allowed 2 runs, gave up a leadoff infield single by Jung-Hoo Lee on a chopper off to the left of home plate on an 0-2 pitch. Lee initially was called out, but the Giants manager Tony Vitello successfully challenged the play. Beeter then committed a throwing error on a pickoff attempt. Beeter then gave up an opposite field RBI double by Bryce Eldridge to left field on an 0-2 pitch for a 2-1 Giants lead. Beeter then issued a hit by pitch of Matt Chapman. Then came back-to-back sacrifice bunts by the Giants, including a 1-out first pitch RBI sac bunt by Jonah Cox for a 3-1 Giants lead. So Beeter got that big out to begin his outing, but then had a hard time in the 8th inning. But Gus Varland successfully pulled off the save, scoreless bottom of the 9th with 2 swinging strikeouts, despite issuing a leadoff walk and despite giving up a 2-out single. Things got tense in the 9th, but Varland came through. So far from a clean game for the Nats bullpen, but the Nats got the win. What'd you think of Butera pulling Miles Mikolas for Mitchell Parker in the spot in which Butera did that?
I did not like it at all for a variety of reasons. So let's go through this. And let's be honest, if not for the 9th inning rally, this is going to be the story of the game, I think. You have Miles Mikolas cruising to that point, and you go to Mitchell Parker, who we have seen now enough times brought into high leverage spots and has not been able to deliver more often than not in those spots. The problem with this is this clearly looked like a pre-planned thing. You knew that the Giants had a couple of lefties coming up there, and you said, okay, we're going to Mitchell Parker no matter what. And to me, you let Miles Mikolas start that inning. He got 2 outs. His pitch count is nothing. It's 54 after 4 2/3 innings. Why not at least give him a shot to get at least the first lefty out? If you give up a home run, okay, I understand it looks bad. But taking out an effective starter who has not been overworked at all in this spot, and who, by the way, had shut out the Giants last time he faced them. He's now got 8 2/3 scoreless innings against the Giants this season. And doing that for a guy who, yes, he's left-handed, but we've seen this is not the role for Mitchell Parker. He is at best going to be a long man lefty out of the bullpen who you maybe give a clean inning to and know that he's going to pitch several innings. He's the guy you bring in when the starter is not doing well. In this case, Mikolas was in great shape. No reason he couldn't have continued. I feel like this has happened now a few too many times where it's just clear that they go into it and saying, this is what we're going to do, and they don't let the game situation change the way they approach it. And I really don't love that aspect of this.
So I might be on an island on this. I didn't have so much a problem with Mikolas being pulled because you do have to be really careful with him, and it can go quickly. And the idea, of course, is to get him out before he struggles. I think the issue is this. It's Mitchell Parker. It's not that Mikolas was pulled. It's the pitcher for whom Mikolas was pulled. I don't know why they keep trusting Mitchell Parker in these high leverage / pseudo high leverage spots. I just don't think he's earned that at this point. For a while, he was doing okay, and we talked about that. But that while now was a while ago, and the recent work just has not been very good. And his overall numbers for this season are not very good. His ERA is 5.34. And he just, to me, looks more and more like, a mop-up guy as opposed to a high-leverage guy. So if you're going to pull Mikolas, I do think that there's justification for doing that, but pull him for somebody else. I don't know why it has to be Mitchell Parker.
Those next two lefties coming up with two outs there, I thought that was the time to go to Mitchell, the lefty, to get us out of that inning. It didn't go his way tonight.
This coaching staff, or at least this manager, seems to have a higher opinion of Mitchell Parker than the rest of us. And I don't know if it was that initial work from Parker that's sticking with Butera or what, but his recent work does not justify the role that he's being entrusted in these days.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100% on that. If you have another quality left-handed reliever, I don't mind making that move. You've gotten what you can out of Mikolas, and you're saying, okay, we know the history here. There's a good chance he's not going to be able to keep that up. If you have another lefty, that's the issue right now. Once you use Richard Lovelady as your opener, and it worked out, he did fine and put a couple guys on base yet again in that spot. But once you've used him, Parker's the only other lefty you have in your bullpen now, because P.J. Pullen's still at AAA. I think it's still several more days until he's eligible to come back. Andrew Alvarez is in the rotation. There is no other lefty. So if you're going to pull Mikolas at that spot and not go to Parker, then it's going to end up being a right-hander. Well, that doesn't make sense to bring in a righty to face a couple lefties. So given what the options were in that moment, Mikolas to me is a better option than Parker. The way things are going, I don't know if this is going to happen or not, but the way things are going right now, to me, as soon as Pullen is eligible to come back, and he had to be down for 15 days, and I think we're somewhere around 11 or 12 right now. As soon as he's eligible, I'm swapping Pullen for Parker. I don't know that Parker right now is holding down a role that you really need. I think it's way more valuable right now to have two true matchup lefty relievers than have one of those and then one pseudo long man who you then have to use in high leverage spots. I think we've seen Mitchell Parker enough to understand what he is at this point. And I think P.J. Pullen is a more valuable member of this bullpen at this moment than Mitchell Parker would be.
What about this, too? Do you have to go lefty versus lefty? Like, if you have a righty who's good against lefties, do you have to be so rigid with the lefty-lefty thing? And the guy I'm thinking of is Brad Lord. Brad Lord this season has been good against both righties and lefties. Brad Lord, even with all of his success, has pitched in just 3 more games than Mitchell Parker has pitched. And now I know that's a little skewed because Lord tends to work in bulk outings, but I don't know why it's like unthinkable to bring in a Brad Lord in a spot like that. He's been good against both righties and lefties. I think somebody like that should be thought of. I don't know that it always has to be this lefty versus lefty thing so much if you have a guy who's a righty who does well against lefties, as Lord is doing this season.
Yeah, I get that. And certainly you get to the end of the game and they're letting Beater and Varland face left-handed hitters with the game on the line. So it's not like you can't do that. Yeah, that's fine. Lord had not pitched since Saturday, so you can make the case for that as well. I was joking with someone as this game was playing out and saying it sometimes feels like they're managing these games from a pitching standpoint like you would a spring training game. It's, hey, who needs work today? And they're all going to get into the game, and it doesn't even matter what the game situation is. I'm exaggerating about that somewhat, but there's a little bit of truth to it that it was kind of like going into it. They said, okay, Lovelady's our opener. Mikolas is the bulk guy. And then Parker's going to come in after him to face lefties. And there wasn't a lot of leeway to let the game situations change any of that. And it's still, I think, probably at this point, 67 games in, probably Blake Butera's biggest area of concern. Now, I say that as if he's the one making that call entirely on his own. And I think there's more to it than that. I think there are pregame meetings with the coaching staff and the front office where a lot of things are mapped out about how they want the game to go. And I think he may be on board with it himself anyways, but I don't think that's a one-person decision. I think that's a collective decision that's being made by people across multiple levels of the organization, that this is how they want to handle these kind of situations. And I think sometimes you have to let the game situation dictate how you're going to do it. It doesn't have to be pre-planned. It's okay to have a feel for the moment and who makes the most sense in that moment, given how the game is playing out.
And it's okay to reevaluate who's in what role. And again, with Parker, I just don't know why he still is in this high leverage role when his performances just don't seem to justify it. So, this would be the big nit to pick with the process. But overall, I mean, how do you not love what's happening? 34-33, the run differential at +5, a big win at the Giants late night on Monday night. This is looking like another really nice road trip for the Nats. We'll see what happens over the final 2 games of this 3-game series at the Giants. But the Nats so far, 3 3-1 on this 6-game road trip out west. Game 2 at the Giants late night on Tuesday night, a 9:45 first pitch. Andrew Alvarez will be the Nats starting pitcher. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Table to Mat, which you can count on for all of your nutrition and personal training needs. Table to Mat offers virtual and in-person nutrition services and personal training to the DMV area. You can email Table to Mat directly through the website at tabletomat.com. That's the word table, the number 2, MAT.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast.
Here's the pitch. Swing and a miss and a breaking ball.
With a chance of let's go Strasburg. Let's go Strasburg before the pitch. Listen to this Nationals Park crowd.
2 outs, top of the 7th. No balls, 2 strikes. The line, the kick, and the pitch. Swing and a miss. 14 strikeouts. 7 in a row. Unbelievable. That may be all for the night. And they are saluting their new hero here in D.C.
There's a new mayor in town, Dave. He won the election in one night.
14 strikeouts.
Wow. As advertised, better than that. They want a curtain call.
You almost don't want to go to break. Unbelievable. 7th inning stretch. Our score, Nationals 4, Pirates 2.